Welcome! Today I wanted to share with you my favorite really easy whole wheat bread recipe. Actually has not only whole wheat flour, but I like to add a little bit of wheat bran for some extra fiber, some chickpea flour for the protein, some dark rye flour for interesting taste. Wheat germ also gives some extra nutrients, and some oat flour just for fun. And some other ingredients that you're going to need is some salt. Of course, you're going to need some active dry yeast and some sort of sugar. That's what the yeast feeds on. So if you don't want to use something refined like brown sugar, you could use some honey. Don't use a substitute sugar like Splenda or something. It needs the actual sugar to feed on so that it'll rise. You could use white sugar too. That's like the one unhealthy thing we're throwing in here because the yeast is hungry and needs it. Making your own homemade bread is really fun. It can be a lot of work. I like to use my stand mixer. That makes the kneading process a lot easier, a lot faster. And if you don't have a stand mixer, you can knead the bread, but you'll have to do that for quite a bit longer by hand. You could find a tutorial on the best way to knead, how long to knead the bread, but it is a lot of work. It's good upper body exercise. Other things you're going to need: 2 cups of water, and that should be heated up to 115 degrees. I just pop it in the microwave, and then we will test the temperature with a thermometer. That's something else that you are going to need. You're also going to need a 1/3 measuring cup, a tablespoon measure, a teaspoon measure, and a 1 cup measure. Additionally, you're going to need some kind of oil. I have avocado oil in here. Any kind of oil will work. I've used olive oil for years, but avocado oil is what I have today. Any of those will work. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is add 3 cups of your whole wheat flour to your bowl. You don't need to measure exactly. I just kind of do it pretty close. Bread isn't a very precise type of recipe. So with 3 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of yeast. There we go. Also not perfect. None of these measurements are super precise. Your water temperature you should be pretty careful with. Don't want it too hot, could kill the yeast. If it's too cool, the yeast won't grow quickly enough. We have the yeast. Let's put the salt in. It's kind of dangerous to pour the salt over the bread, so I will do that over here. I've had a few mishaps with the salt pouring over the top into there. So we have the salt, we have the yeast, and we need 1/3 cup of brown sugar, or whatever kind of sugar you want. You can cut the sugar back a little bit if you want. I usually do kind of a scant 1/3 cup. All right, so you're going to need to use your mixing, just your stirring attachment. So we will stir these dry ingredients together just to get them combined. So now we have the flour, the yeast, the salt, the sugar all mixed in. So now it's time to add the liquid. So we will add our 2 cups of 115 degree water while it mixes. And I mixed the 1/4 cup of oil at the same time. You don't have to do it at the same time. I'm just impatient. Okay, now once that's a little bit mixed together, turn it up to medium high and then mix for 3 minutes. Let's clean off our beater attachment as good as we can. And good enough. I like to soak this in some soapy water while we work, or else that turns very crusty and difficult to clean. All right, just kind of scrape down the sides a little bit. All right, now the fun part starts. We attach the dough hook. On my mixer, the dough hook should be run not at the very lowest, but on the number 2 setting. All right, so we'll start with just the regular flour, just to get the dough going. I'm going to add about a 1/2 cup to start, just to start thickening up the dough. Wait for it to incorporate. Then I'd add a little bit of each of these, but I don't bother measuring with them. I just add maybe a 1/4 cup. I just kind of sprinkle in there of these more interesting flours. So there's the dark rye flour, the chickpea flour. You don't have to add all of these. This bread can be easily made with whole wheat flour only. A little bit of chickpea flour. I would guess I'm putting about 1/8 cup of each of these flours in. Brand new bag of wheat bran. We'll sprinkle a little of that in there. You can experiment with all kinds of different grains that you might be interested in. Flour, as long as it's fairly small in texture. There's our wheat germ. And this is a new one that I've been using, oat flour. There we go, about 1/8 cup each. Not critical to measure exactly with bread. That's what's fun about making bread. Well, maybe the most fun is how nice your house smells while it's baking. All right. Now, we'll just go back to the regular flour. Added another 1/2 cup. Let it knead. Wait for the flour to get incorporated. Check the texture. While it's still pretty soft, I'm going to add these 2 things. Some raw pumpkin seeds and some raw sunflower seeds. That adds a really nice textures. A little more protein, healthy fats, some vitamins. Pumpkin seeds, 1 serving, which is about a heaping tablespoon, has 10% of your daily magnesium, RDA. So that's kind of cool. Let's see what sunflower seeds have. Sunflower seeds have 17% of your vitamin E, RDA. So good idea to use those whenever you can. So again, I just sprinkle them in, probably also about 1/8 cup for each one. All right, now we have all of our interesting ingredients added, so we're just going to keep adding the wheat flour until the dough is the texture that we want for shaping well, we're not going to shape the loaf yet, but we're going to want it to be a texture that's not sticky and not too firm. If it's too firm, it won't rise as well. If it's too sticky, it'll be really hard to handle, and it'll just kind of balloon up and have a whole bunch of holes in it. I'll show you how to test the correct texture. Another half cup, so I'm just watching it. You'll probably end up using about 4.5 cups of flour. There's 3 cups initially. I've added about another cup just now. Here's what it's looking like now. Still looking pretty sticky. We'll add a little bit more flour. Let's check. It's still sticking to my fingers. It's looking kind of ragged and sticky, so it's not quite ready yet. Add another half cup or so. I think that should probably be it. All right, this is looking like it's about done, ready to bring out. Let's check it. There's a lot stuck on the sides, so I'm going to incorporate that. Scrape it off. So we don't want to waste any of our dough. All right, let's check the texture. All right, so this is just about right. We're able to pick it up. It's not sticking to our hands. It does not look shaggy, but it's still soft and pliable. So now it's time to leave the mixer behind. Soak that in water. I'm going to let the bread rise in this bowl. And to keep it from sticking, I'll use a little bit of my avocado oil. I got this really cool oil dispenser on Etsy, handmade. It's really awesome. I'll see if I can find the store where I bought it, and I'll put a link down there. They have some really neat stuff on that store. All right, so we take our dough, and we want to kind of form it into a ball so it's smooth on the bottom. So on a clean countertop, start with it like this. Pull up the edge. Use the heel of your down hand to kind of squish it in the middle. Turn it 90 degrees. Do the same there. Turn it 90 degrees. Pull up, push down. You're tucking all these ends into the center. Push down. You can do that a couple more times till it's nicely tucked. You can see how that's all kind of tucked into the middle on this side. Then on this side, it's nice and smooth. So I just grab it on the back where all those seams are. I take my bowl, put it in the bowl, and then I just sort of rotate it around and around and around like that. And then when it's got all the oil on top, I grab it like that. I flip it over. So the smooth side is on the top. And then it's ready to rise. I'm going to get some plastic wrap to put on the top. All right, just seal the top. If you don't want to use plastic wrap, you can use a damp dishcloth something like a tea towel and drape that. You just don't want air getting in here because it will make the top of your dough crusty and hard, and you won't be able to shape it when it's time for baking. Okay, so we're going to put this in a warm place. You can put it in an oven that has a pilot light turned on. You can turn up your oven to its lowest setting, turn it off, then put the dough in your oven to rise for 1.5 hours. So that's what I'm going to do. I set mine on top of my hot water tank. So 1.5 hours. I will see you when it's time to shape it and put it in the pan. Our bread is risen and we are ready to put it in our 9-inch by 5-inch pan. All right. So we'll want to liberally oil this pan. I normally don't use non-stick cookware as it is coated with a chemically substance that's not terribly healthy. But for baking bread, we're not abrading the surface. So I think it has a minimal chance of causing problems. If you want to use just a plain stainless steel pan or something that would be just a little bit safer, more eco-friendly, more human-friendly, go ahead. But having your bread stick after you've gone through all this time to wait for it to rise and to make it can be pretty frustrating. So I just oiled my pan. I'm going to go ahead and put some of the oil on my hands too. And squish this bread down, pull it out. I don't need this anymore, so we'll put it over here. All right, so this is how I shape it. There's a couple of different ways that you can shape it. You could just curl it up like that and shape it. I've been rolling it up. What you're aiming for is one side to be totally smooth with the seams that are going to be on the bottom. So I'm going to smush down. We don't want to have holes in it after it's baked, so really smush it down to keep the holes out of it. And then you can just roll it really, really tightly. This is the way I've been doing it lately. I've tried a lot of different methods. When you get this seam, tightly squish it up, seal it, and then get these ends also tucked in. Squish all those seams together. And then I just sort of roll it, squish it to get everything tightly together. And we'll just put this seam side down into the pan. This isn't a terribly detailed sort of project. So I'll bring my pan over here and we'll just roll it over and set it in the pan. Seam side down. So it should look nice and smooth, ready for its second rising. This rising won't be as long. I let it rise for 30 minutes. At 30 minutes, I go and turn my oven on to 375 degrees. And by the time my oven is done heating up, this will be risen to just the perfect size and it'll be ready to pop in the oven. So we also want to cover this. Again, you can use a damp cloth. I like using the plastic wrap. It seems to work the best, but you don't want it to stick. If it sticks, it's going to mess up your loaf, and that would be sad. Just put just a little oil on it. Just put a little oil on the center. The oven is hot. We're ready to put our bread in. This is what it should look like, about how high it should rise. Take off the plastic. And we're ready to pop it in. Set our timer for 30 minutes, and I will see you then when we're ready to take it out. Time to get this bread out of the oven. It smells so good in here. And here it is. It looks beautiful. While my oven is still hot, I'm going to throw in the sweet potatoes to bake. Just rubbed a tiny bit of oil on them. You can roast them without the oil. I think the skins taste a little bit better when they've had a little bit of oil on them. So I'm going to turn my oven up to 400 degrees and toss these guys in the oven. May as well be efficient. The way that we get this bread out of here is we turn it over. This is with my pan. Your pan might be different. You might even have to slide a knife in there. Being that this is nonstick, I don't want to touch it with any kind of metal. I'm just going to tap the corner. All right. And there it is. It looks great. It smells great. I hope you try this. Let me know in the comments if you tried this, and if you have any suggestions for improving the recipe or any changes you made that you thought worked really well. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. If you are interested in seeing a grocery haul in a small town in Alaska and how I navigate the store to find the healthiest things, then check out this video over here. Thanks for stopping by.